Welcome back to the deep dive. So, if your language learning journey feels, I don't know, less like a sprint and more like this endless, inconsistent jog, where you just keep hitting the same walls and forgetting the same words, well, this deep dive is for you. We are completely bypassing that slow, passive study model.
Yes.
Today, we're locking onto what the research is calling the 90-day fluency sprint.
That's absolutely right. And our sources, they detail this really intensive methodology. We're calling it the Accelerated Acquisition Blueprint.
Okay.
And our mission here is pretty surgical. We're not just analyzing how to spend more hours studying. That's the old way.
Right. More time doesn't equal more learning.
Exactly. It's about how to optimize the intensity of those hours and how to structure them based on what we now know from cognitive science.
So the goal is to find the exact formula.
The formula that takes this massive volume of, input, listening, reading, and rapidly turns it into reliable, spontaneous, and most importantly, usable output.
And before we get into all the fun stuff, the techniques and all that, we really have to lay down the ground rules. Because this path, this accelerated path, it's intense for a reason.
It is.
The foundational principle in this blueprint is a required minimum daily commitment. We're talking 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours of highly focused, segmented practice.
And that's the key phrase, highly focused.
Yeah, this isn't 2.5 hours of, passively listening to something while you're doing the dishes.
Yeah.
This is dedicated time. The whole strategy here, it prioritizes getting a sheer volume of input and immediate production first. The idea is to aim for functional fluency before you get completely bogged down in all that endless refinement and, perfection.
And just think about it this way. 90 days, that's roughly 2,160 hours.
Okay.
So if you commit to that 2.5 hours of dedicated, focused training every day, that adds up to 225 hours of high-impact study time.
Wow.
And that's enough concentrated exposure and practice to fundamentally rewire how your brain processes and produces language.
So the intensity is the point.
The methodology has to be intense because we're relying on that intensity to forge these permanent neural pathways. And to do it quickly, before the natural process of memory decay just starts to undo all your work.
But, okay, 2.5 hours. That sounds like a lot, especially for a busy professional. The sources mention the time has to be segmented. So how do you practically break down that demanding 150 minutes?
Yeah, segmentation is everything. Otherwise, you're just going to burn out.
Right.
You need that variety to keep your brain engaged and, to hit all the necessary linguistic skills. A typical breakdown that we see in these successful blueprints looks something like this.
Okay.
First, 30 minutes. High yield input. So reading or listening. This is focused reading of high frequency text or targeted listening with, a transcript.
Got it.
Then another 30 minutes, active recall and SRS review.
Flashcards.
The flashcards, exactly. This is your non-negotiable vocabulary reinforcement using a spaced repetition system. Then you've got another 30 minutes on output production. So shadowing or writing, this can be that focused shadowing technique, which we're definitely going to detail later, or targeted writing exercises.
And that leaves an hour.
1 full hour, 60 minutes, for structured interaction or immersion. This is the crucial high-volume speaking time, either with a tutor, a language partner, or even just focused media consumption where you're actively engaging with it, stopping, taking notes, repeating phrases out loud.
That structure makes it feel much more manageable. You're never doing the same thing for too long. Okay, let's unpack this whole approach, starting with the science of it, the science of speed. We often treat language learning as this one big monolithic task. But when you actually look at the brain, it's a massive coordinated effort. It involves all these distinct regions. So why does a 90-day sprint specifically need to target these areas? And how does that commitment to consistency really accelerate the process?
Well, the 90-day sprint is essentially a high-pressure forging process for your neurocircuitry.
A forging process. I like that.
Yeah. When we talk about language acquisition, we're really relying on 3 key players in the brain. First up, you've got the hippocampus.
Right.
As we mentioned, this is the region that's vital for forming new declarative memories. It's responsible for encoding all that new vocabulary, all those grammar rules, all the facts about the language.
So the hippocampus is like the initial recording studio for all the raw data.
Exactly. But language isn't just data, right? It's a performance. And that's where the other 2 areas come in.
Yeah.
You've got Wernicke's area, which is crucial for processing and understanding language. That's your comprehension zone.
So that's working overtime when you're trying to follow a fast conversation.
Totally. And then you have the star of the output show, Broca's area, which is specialized for language production, for planning speech, and for generating that spontaneous output.
And in the context of this sprint, this acceleration, what happens when we apply that consistent 2.5-hour pressure cooker approach to those three areas?
Well, consistent daily practice, without any gaps, it strengthens the neural connections between these three areas.
Okay.
Imagine those connections are like paths through a dense jungle. If you walk them once a month, the plants grow back and you have to fight your way through every single time. That's slow learning.
Yeah, that feels familiar.
But if you walk those paths every single day for 90 days, you build a superhighway. Stronger connections mean lightning fast recall of words and rules and faster, more accurate speech production. The real danger for learners not on a sprint is that without this consistency, those pathways literally start to weaken and decay within days.
Forcing you to relearn the same thing over and over.
Exactly.
That neurological decay, that's why the same flashcards keep coming up week after week if I skip a few days. So consistency is the physical mechanism. But you also mentioned earlier that language learning is deeply psychological. We have to deal with the anxiety, right? The fear that stops those connections from even forming.
This is, and I can't stress this enough, this is maybe the single biggest barrier to acceleration. The psychological barrier, or what we call the affective filter. And we draw this from Stephen Krashen's seminal monitor model theory.
The affective filter.
It represents all those internal psychological walls: anxiety, high self-consciousness, low motivation, or just the fear of making mistakes.
So how does this filter actually, disrupt the learning process on a practical level?
The theory suggests that the affective filter acts like a dam.
Okay.
If that filter is up, meaning your anxiety levels are high, maybe because you're terrified of saying the wrong thing, even if you're getting perfectly comprehensible input.
The knowledge you need.
The knowledge you need, yes, that input cannot reach the brain's language acquisition device, or LAD.
So the LAD, the language acquisition device, I remember this being a pretty debated concept, but for our purposes here, what does it really represent in the context of the sprint?
In the context of this blueprint, you can think of the LAD as the ultimate black box that converts theoretical knowledge into unconscious, usable skill.
Okay.
Krashen argued that input only becomes acquired knowledge when that filter is low. If you're anxious, you might intellectually know the grammar rule, but the filter stops that rule from migrating to the part of your brain that spontaneously generates speech.
So wait, if I understand the grammar perfectly, but I'm too scared to use it, the affective filter has basically stopped the knowledge transfer, and I can never actually be fluent.
Precisely. Therefore, acceleration demands that we engineer confidence.
Engineer confidence. I love that.
You have to commit to speaking and, crucially, to making mistakes. High volume, highly visible mistakes, as a prerequisite for that theoretical knowledge to translate into real competence. The environment has to be non-judgmental.
And speaking of environment and that link between knowledge and action, let's bring in a concept you mentioned before that really helps break down that filter. Total physical response, or TPR.
Yes, TPR is so important, especially in the early stages, because it directly addresses this need to solidify neural connections through physical action.
Okay.
It was developed by James Asher, and it's based on the idea that memory is just. It's accelerated when it's linked to a physical activity. In practice, this means the learner responds to spoken commands with actual movement.
Can you give us a quick example of how this would work in an English sprint?
Sure. So if you're learning basic verbs and prepositions, instead of just repeating stand up or walk to the door, a tutor would actually command you. Stand up, and you stand up. Walk slowly to the window and touch the glass.
I see.
By linking the linguistic input, the words slowly, touch, to your physical action, the hippocampus forms a much stronger multisensory memory. You're creating a direct neural path between the word and the action it represents, completely bypassing the need for translation.
That makes the word less of an abstract idea and more of an immediate physical reality. It seems perfect for accelerating those high-frequency action verbs.
It's a critical tool for building speed and just lowering the cognitive load of translation. It forces immediate, confident physical performance, which naturally lowers that affective filter. You're too busy moving to be worried about a grammar mistake.
So we have the neural necessity consistency and the psychological necessity lowering the filter. So let's talk about how these accelerated programs structure this intense period so the learner doesn't just, quit on day 45.
Yeah, structured programs are key to managing that intensity. They recognize that demanding 2.5 hours of focus every single day might scare some people off.
Right.
That's why they often offer tiered intensity levels. You mentioned the light challenge, maybe one formal lesson per week with self-study, the immersive challenge, 2 structured lessons, or the ultimate intensive challenge, which is 3 structured lessons a week, really maximizing that daily commitment.
That tiered approach lets people sort of dip their toe in. But what about when life inevitably interferes? Work deadlines, travel, getting sick. These intense plans can feel really fragile.
That's why the best blueprints build in mechanisms for sustainability and accountability. Our findings clearly show that successful programs offer generous extension periods, sometimes up to 90 or even 180 days of extension.
Wow.
And this is crucial psychological engineering. It removes that paralyzing all or nothing fear.
I see.
If you lose 5 days to a work crisis, you haven't failed. You've just slightly adjusted the timeline. The goal is completion, not perfection, on some arbitrary calendar date.
That's a really sophisticated way to manage commitment. And on a micro level, what are the daily routine tips that keep motivation high during that intense 90-day grind?
It all boils down to seeing measurable progress. Learners have to set small, achievable goals that stack up quickly. We're not aiming for perfect English in 90 days. We're aiming for fluency breakthroughs.
Okay, like what?
For example, aiming to learn 10 new high-frequency words every day, or mastering one core grammatical concept every single week.
10 words a day sounds manageable, but over 90 days, that's 900 new words. You're almost at that 1,000-word bedrock you mentioned.
Exactly. Those small daily wins are the fuel. And tracking your progress, whether it's in a journal, an app, a spreadsheet, whatever, it's non-negotiable.
Why?
Because it gives you tangible evidence of your momentum, which is the perfect antidote to that feeling of stagnation.
Right.
And finally, the most critical element for maintaining consistency is accountability. You need an external force,
Someone else.
a dedicated study partner, a professional tutor, even just a public commitment online, someone who knows your goal and checks in on your 2.5 hours.
So accountability acts as the guardian of those brand new neural connections.
Let's shift our focus to input. Since we're in an accelerated sprint, we really can't afford to waste a single second on low-yield material. We have to be ruthless at our vocabulary strategy.
Okay, ruthless. Let's talk strategy. What is the immediate highest impact target for an accelerated English learner to build that foundational bedrock?
The foundational goal, right after mastering any of those super short lists, is the 1,000 most frequently used English words.
1,000.
This list is a goldmine. If you know these 1,000 words, which includes high-frequency nouns, verbs, and function words, like prepositions, you have the vocabulary to understand about 85% of general spoken conversation and simple written texts.
85%. That's a huge return on investment. Can you give us a few more examples of the types of words on this list, the ones that do the heavy lifting?
Certainly, there are foundational concepts that apply everywhere.
Right.
Words like develop, environment, specific, industry, strategy, issue, relationship, opportunity, significant.
Right, the building blocks.
They are the bricks you build almost every practical sentence with. Our sources provide this list alphabetically, which, can seem a bit counterintuitive, but the key isn't how they're presented, it's how they're learned.
Which brings us back to active recall. We can't just passively reread this list of 1,000 words. How do we make sure they're instantly available for spontaneous speech?
This is what we call the active recall mandate, and it's the only way to accelerate vocabulary from passive knowledge into an active skill. Active recall means you are testing yourself without any visual cues, no notes, no translations. You are forcing the retrieval process. You see the English word significant, and you have to immediately produce its meaning, or even better, use it correctly in a new sentence, all from memory.
And why is this deliberate retrieval so much more powerful than just passive review?
Because every time you successfully retrieve a piece of information from scratch, you're signaling to your hippocampus, hey, this is critical, save it permanently, and make the path to it faster.
Right.
This retrieval practice physically strengthens the neural pathways way more effectively than just recognizing the word when you reread it. And when you fail to retrieve it, the failure itself highlights exactly where your weakness is, so you can do immediate, focused remedial study.
That's like highly efficient self-diagnosis. And this has to be paired immediately with a spaced repetition system, an SRS.
Absolutely. The sprint requires immediate integration. Any new high-value vocabulary you find during your 2.5 hours while you're reading, watching something, talking to a partner, it has to be quickly put into an SRS flashcard system.
And the algorithm does the rest?
The SRS algorithm handles all the scheduling, making sure you review the word just before you're about to forget it. It maximizes retention efficiency and fights that natural neurological decay we talked about.
Okay, let's pivot from static words to dynamic input. Listening comprehension. A major finding in the research is that traditional audio-only recordings are, well, pretty inefficient compared to multimedia, specifically animations paired with subtitles. Why is that combination so potent?
Yeah, there's critical empirical evidence that shows this combination is highly effective because it simultaneously addresses the three biggest pain points for intermediate learners.
HR.
Fast speech rate, the presence of unfamiliar vocabulary, and the lack of visual context. If you're struggling with a word in an audio track, you have to pause, look it up, you lose the flow.
Yep.
But if you have the visual context of a character performing an action and the written text in the subtitle, the meaning just clicks instantly. It reduces frustration and your cognitive load.
And the visual context lets your brain connect the sound to the meaning without having to rely just on decoding the sound waves. It frees up mental bandwidth.
Exactly. But the deeper power is in decoding what we call reduced speech.
Reduced speech.
Native speakers don't articulate every single syllable perfectly, especially in rapid, informal English. A learner might hear something that sounds like "wajaganado," and their brain just freezes because it doesn't match the dictionary standard of what are you going to do.
It's a linguistic ambush.
It is. And multimedia solves this. The learner hears that rapid reduced form, wajaganado, while simultaneously reading the clean written text, what are you going to do?
Oh, that's brilliant.
This crucial multimodal link helps the brain map the spoken reduced sound directly to the standard written form. And this skill is, it's paramount for surviving real-life conversations.
That's a powerful tool for bridging the gap between textbook English and how people actually talk. But how do we make sure the learner doesn't just get lazy and read the subtitles and ignore the audio?
You have to strategically challenge the comfort zone. You do this through a specific subtitle progression. The goal is intentional difficulty. The progression is this.
Okay.
1, start with subtitles in your native language. Listen to the English audio just to get the plot and the main ideas quickly.
Step 1.
2, switch to English subtitles. This is the real learning phase. You're focusing on mapping the spoken sound to the written English word. You pause, you check vocab, you capture those reduced forms.
And step 3.
Remove the subtitles entirely. This is the final test. You now have to rely purely on your auditory decoding and the skills you built up in the previous 2 phases.
So if you just stay on English subtitles forever, you've basically cheated your brain out of the chance to develop pure listening comprehension. You have to take the training wheels off.
You absolutely do. This is a sprint, not a scenic drive.
So let's talk practical logistics of media consumption during that 2.5-hour block. How should you choose your content, and how do you stop the whole thing from just becoming a frustrating slog?
The first rule of content choice is familiarity. Select movies you already know the plot of, or films based on books you've read,
Why?
because you should already know what's happening.
Yeah.
That way, all your cognitive energy can be focused entirely on the linguistic delivery, the words, the phrases, the cadence. And for beginners, stick firmly to animated movies. They intentionally use clearer dialogue and simpler grammar.
Yeah.
You avoid the complex language of, say, a Shakespeare adaptation.
That's smart. If the plot is already locked in, you can focus on the form, not the content. And what about overload? Watching a 2-hour movie actively sounds mentally exhausting.
It is overwhelming, and frustration leads to quitting. So the solution is what we call the subtitle sprint technique.
Oh, okay.
You break the media up into small, high-intensity chunks. Instead of trying to watch the whole movie, commit to studying just a specific 10-minute segment daily, or set a goal to actively translate and process only 15 lines of dialogue. This intensity prevents cognitive fatigue and maintains your focus.
And what about using technology to help with that detailed listening practice?
Tech is your co-pilot here. When you hit a really confusing spoken section, use your media player to play it back at half speed or even quarter speed. This forces your brain to isolate individual sounds and word boundaries. It's an indispensable technique. Furthermore, keep a movie journal. When you hear a useful, authentic, real-life phrase, a great idiom, a colloquialism, pause and write it down immediately. This journal becomes this high-impact collection of usable phrases, way more valuable than anything from a textbook.
Okay, so we've covered high volume, strategically acquired input. We have the vocabulary, the comprehension skills, the segmentation. Now we have to move to the ultimate challenge of the sprint, production.
We've stressed that fluency is really about the confident production of speech. The transition from that internal, Acquired knowledge to rapid, spontaneous speech is the hard part. But our accelerated techniques have to prioritize immediate, high-volume output with rigorous self-correction.
And the undisputed champion for refining sound and cadence is shadowing. Let's define it again and explain why it's so much better than just simple repetition.
Shadowing is a synchronized technique. You listen to an audio recording native speaker dialogue, and you simultaneously repeat the words, acting as the speaker's linguistic shadow.
So you're speaking at the same time.
At the same time. You aren't trying to memorize the text. You're focusing intently on matching the native speaker's rhythm, their intonation, their stress patterns, and the exact sounds they're producing. It's really an auditory motor skill exercise.
You know, I often hear learners dismiss the importance of accent. They'll say, as long as I'm understood, it's fine. But this blueprint seems to prioritize achieving a really high standard of communication. Why is that?
Our sources align with what most serious language learners actually want, and that's to achieve a native standard of communication.
Okay.
This isn't about eliminating your own accent entirely. It's about having an accent that allows you to fit in rather than stand out. Clear cadence, correct intonation. It drastically reduces the cognitive load on your listener. It enables smoother, faster communication, which is the whole goal of fluency. Shadowing is the fastest path to perfecting that auditory performance.
Okay, let's break down the shadowing execution strategy in detail. If someone listening wants to start this sprint today, what are the 4 critical phases of this technique?
Okay, 4 steps. 1, selection and active listening. You have to choose high-quality content and critically commit to a specific accent, like General American or RP. Listen once actively, just taking note of the speaker's emotional tone and rhythm.
Got it. Step 2.
2 is repetition and phasing. You start small to build muscle memory. Don't try to shadow the whole track immediately. First, just perfect the sound and rhythm of individual words, then short phrases, then short sentences, and only then do you move to longer passages or the full audio track.
So it's incremental.
Very. 3 is the self-correction loop. This is the non-negotiable step. This is the turbocharge.
Okay.
You must record yourself speaking and then compare your output directly to the original native speaker. Use that recording to systematically identify your error patterns.
For example?
Are you mispronouncing certain vowel sounds? Do you always struggle with consonant clusters at the ends of words? You then focus your next practice session entirely on those specific trouble spots.
And the final step.
Step 4 is integration. This is the final stage, seamless tandem recitation. You recite the full passage simultaneously with the speaker, perfectly mimicking their cadence, speed, and expression. If you're doing it right, you really are their linguistic shadow.
That focus on the self-correction loop, that's what turns practice into accelerated refinement. Okay, so once the learner can generate high-quality sound, they need practice generating high-stakes content. Let's talk structured interaction. Why is a professional tutor so much more valuable than just casual conversation practice?
A professional tutor provides an environment that is, well, non-judgmental, dedicated, and highly efficient. Casual practice often lets systematic errors just slip through because your partner is focused on the content, not the form.
Right.
A professional tutor provides immediate, precise correction of those systematic errors. Things like chronic misuse of a tense or a fundamental pronunciation mistake. This guided corrective environment directly accelerates your conversational confidence because you eliminate those deep-seated errors before they become permanent habits.
And the lessons themselves shouldn't just be generic chit-chat. They need to be customized to the learner's actual high-stakes goals.
Exactly. The most effective use of a tutor's time is focused personalization. Is your goal to give presentations, to master complex small talk in a business setting? Or is it simply to handle daily tasks, like ordering a delivery or going to the doctor? These goals have to define the content of the sprint.
Speaking of high-stakes application, the blueprint specifically highlights the need to master job interview skills. This is where fluency becomes career strategy. And we can't just mention this in passing, we have to explain the critical structure here. The STAR method.
This is a perfect example of applied focused output training. The STAR method is a structured way to answer behavioral interview questions. Tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker.
Yeah.
Mastering this structure in English is it's paramount.
So break it down for us, STAR.
Okay, so the acronym stands for S, situation. You start by setting the context. Describe a specific event or project clearly. For example, last year during the launch of Project X.
Okay, S is situation. What's T?
T task. Clearly outline the goal or responsibility you had in that situation. So, my task was to redesign the user interface within a compressed 2-week timeline.
A is for action.
A, action.
Yeah.
This is the core. Detail the specific steps you took to address the task. Use powerful action verbs. I organized an immediate triage meeting, synthesized feedback from 3 departments, and personally coded the revised modules overnight.
And R is result.
Our result. Finish with the measurable outcome of your actions. Always try to quantify this. As a result, we hit the deadline, and the new interface saw a 20% reduction in user errors in the first month.
That structure is vital. It forces you to practice using complex tenses and high-impact vocabulary while sounding professional and concise. That is applied fluency.
It connects the theoretical grammar to tangible, career-critical performance. If you can confidently handle the 5 critical interview questions, tell me about yourself, discuss your weaknesses, use STAR, explain why they should pick you, and share a success story, you've achieved high-stakes conversational mastery.
Now, for learners who need that high-volume practice but maybe don't have access to professional tutoring, language exchange platforms are essential. What's the landscape of options for that consistent interaction?
The landscape is pretty diverse, which is great. There are options for every personality type. For instant, low-commitment exchanges, there's Speaky. If you prefer a platform that's mainly for video chatting and more structured interaction, the Mixer is a reliable choice.
What about for groups?
For those who thrive in public or group settings, Polyglot Club focuses on group discussions, and for local in-person practice, meetup groups are still an excellent resource.
With online exchanges, I know the issues of safety and filtering can be a concern, especially for users who are looking for consistent professional-level interactions.
That's a crucial consideration, and our sources highlight platforms like Idioma for prioritizing user safety and genuine connection. They offer specific safety features: profile verification, robust one-click blocking tools, sophisticated filters to control who contacts you, and importantly, they disable photo messaging in chat. This focus creates a safer, more sustainable environment, which is particularly beneficial for young women and girls engaging in online exchange.
And for the learner who's seeking a stable, dedicated, long-term study partner rather than just instant chat roulette.
For finding that dedicated long-term accountability partner, Reddit is a surprisingly useful and free resource.
Really?
Yes, specifically the language learning subreddits. They allow you to post detailed requests for partners based on time zones, goals, specific needs. Now, Reddit isn't a video chat platform itself, but it's a phenomenal matching service.
So you find your partner there and then move somewhere else.
Exactly. Once you find a reliable study buddy, you simply move the actual high-volume video exchange to a trusted external platform.
That sounds like an ideal blend of community and focus practice.
Okay, we've established that the sprint requires prioritizing volume and speaking over initial perfection. Now we have to address the building blocks of formal, articulate expression, grammar, and writing.
In the traditional model, we start with long lists of grammar rules, but the 90-day sprint delays this. Why?
The key shift is prioritizing being understandable over being grammatically perfect in the early stages. If your primary goal is confident conversation, the sheer volume of speaking practice that we've mandated will allow the grammatical rules like correct verb conjugation or placement to start sinking in naturally later on through exposure and correction.
So the lessons handle it as it comes up.
Exactly. Structured lessons address grammar contextually, focusing on high-impact areas like tense continuation, the correct use of modals like must, should, might, conditionals, and complex sentences, but only as the need arises during speaking practice.
But once that speaking muscle is built, we have to move beyond simple sentences.
Yeah.
If a learner wants that academic advantage, to write clear professional emails or give sophisticated presentation structure becomes unavoidable.
Absolutely. The mark of advanced fluency is the ability to connect ideas seamlessly. Formal English relies on 3 structures: simple, compound, and complex. We have to master the last 2.
Okay, let's break down compound sentences. How do they work, and what are the precise formal ways to join 2 independent clauses?
So a compound sentence joins 2 complete equal thoughts, 2 ICs that are related. Mastering the 3 ways to join them is what prevents that choppy, simple sentence style.
Okay, what's method 1?
The most common method is a comma plus a coordinating conjunction. You use one of the 7 Amboise conjunctions, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, and you put a comma before it. For example, the sprint requires immense discipline, and it demands consistent practice.
Simple enough. What's the second way?
A semicolon plus adverbial conjunction. This signals a closer logical relationship. You use a semicolon, then an adverbial conjunction like however or consequently, then a comma. For example, the student achieved rapid vocabulary growth. Consequently, their conversational confidence soared.
And the third?
A semicolon only. This is for when the two ICs are very closely related, and the second one clarifies or explains the first. For example, the affective filter was high, anxiety inhibited the acquisition process.
It seems like the choice of how you join them subtly changes the emphasis or the tone. Using and is simple addition, but a semicolon implies a deeper connection.
That's the linguistic nuance that separates basic from academic English. And of course, the number one mechanical error we have to flag here is the comma splice.
Right.
Trying to join two ICs with only a comma, for example. The tutor corrected the systemic errors. The student's pronunciation immediately improved. That's a structural flaw that you have to fix with a semicolon or a conjunction.
So compound sentences join equal ideas. How do complex sentences introduce a hierarchy between ideas?
Complex sentences introduce subordination. They're made of one independent clause, which is the main idea, and at least one dependent clause, which can't stand alone. The DC relies on a subordinating conjunction to link it to the main IC, and it expresses relationships that add significant detail.
What are some of those subordinating conjunctions and the relationships they express?
They're crucial for academic precision. You've got cause, using because or since. For instance, because she practiced shadowing daily, her cadence was near perfect. Condition, with if or unless. Unless you commit to 2.5 hours, the sprint will fail. Contrast, with although or even though. Although the program was intense, the results were satisfying. And then you also have time, when, while, and purpose.
And the flexibility of the structure means you can emphasize different parts of the sentence depending on where you put that dependent clause.
Exactly. You can lead with it. Even though the task was difficult, she implemented the STAR method effectively. And you need that comma when the DC leads.
Right.
Or you can put the main clause first. She implemented the STAR method effectively, even though the task was difficult. No comma needed there. Mastering this versatility is key to advanced expression.
Finally, let's explore some of these high-impact writing exercises. These aren't just academic drills. They are targeted ways to promote clarity and concision and authenticity. They force you to be surgical with your word choice.
We have 5 powerful techniques here, starting with the challenge of concision. Number 1 is the microfiction challenge.
Okay.
This forces maximum impact with minimal words. Start by writing a full story under 500 words, then scale it down to 250. The ultimate challenge is the 6-word story, like the famous attributed example, for sale, baby shoes never worn.
Wow.
The task requires you to choose every single noun and verb with perfect precision to convey emotion and plot.
That's powerful, choosing one word that tells the story of 5.
It creates mental efficiency. Next, we have a technique from the writer Ursula K. Le Guin, focusing on verbs. This exercise involves eliminating all adjectives and adverbs and relying only on powerful verbs, nouns, pronouns, and articles to create vivid descriptions. You change a weak construction like the cat ran quickly to finding a single powerful verb, the cat darted. It instantly makes the English sound more native and descriptive.
That eliminates the crutch of vague adjectives and weak modifiers, forcing the power into the action words.
Related to that is number 3, avoiding expletive constructions.
What are those?
You eliminate phrases that start with there was, there were, it is, or here are. They're just syntactical filler that weakens the prose. You restructure the sentence with a strong subject and an impactful verb, so you change. There were hundreds of butterflies around us, too. Hundreds of butterflies fluttered around us.
That is so much more dynamic. So those focus on mechanical clarity. What about exercises that access deeper, more authentic expression?
For authentic expression, we use the next 2. Number 4 is the I remember technique.
Okay.
Inspired by the memoirist Joe Brainard, the exercise involves writing short, single-sentence paragraphs, each one starting with the simple phrase, I remember. The goal is to bypass your conscious, grammar-monitoring brain and tap directly into raw, emotional memories. This forces you to express authentic feeling in English, which leads to more sincere and less mechanically constructed language.
That sounds like a great way to lower that affective filter in a really low-stakes, reflective setting.
It's deeply therapeutic for language production. And finally, number 5, we revisit a classic for simultaneous skill reinforcement, dictocomp, dictation composition. This exercise is the ultimate conversion test. An instructor reads a carefully selected paragraph aloud 3 times. The learner listens actively, without taking notes. After the 3rd reading, the learner has to write the paragraph as accurately as possible from memory. It simultaneously tests listening comprehension, vocabulary retention, grammar, and immediate memory recall. It proves how well your input has been converted into ready-to-use output.
This has been a truly comprehensive breakdown of the accelerated acquisition blueprint. To synthesize this, the 90-day fluency sprint is fundamentally about structured, high-volume engagement. It mandates 2.5 hours of segmented, deliberate practice every single day.
We have demonstrated that fluency is not an accident. It is a direct result of turning passive, intellectual knowledge or input into reliable, confident performance, your output. The roadmap is clear. Master the high-yield 1,000 words using active recall, turbocharge your listening with multimedia and the subtitle progression. Perfect your sound and cadence using the rigorous self-correction of shadowing, and apply high-stakes focus through techniques like the STAR method.
And we learned that this acceleration is neurologically sound. It's reinforced by techniques like total physical response, TPR, which uses physical action and movement to create those stronger, faster neural connections. It proves that the body helps the brain retain language.
That linkage between language and action, the demand for confident physical performance, that's what validates this shift from passive study to these intensive digital environments that can replicate total immersion. The science confirms high-intensity works as long as it's structured correctly.
We've given you the complete blueprint, we've detailed the science, and we've provided the tactical exercises needed for success. The only barrier left is your personal commitment.
So we turn the challenge back to you. If the research validates that linking language to action and demanding high intensity is the key to breaking through your fluency barriers, what single, concrete, 90-day learning goal that's focused on converting theoretical knowledge into confident physical performance, what will you commit to in the next 24 hours? Are you setting up your 2.5-hour schedule, committing to 3 shadowing sessions this week, mastering the first 100 high-yield words? The sprint starts now.